Welcome back. Today I want to go over quickly the Your Store Wizards platform migration checklist. Now this is a PDF we have available, so if you need it, just contact us. We're glad to send it to you. It has a lot of things that you should check when migrating platforms, but I wanted to go over a few things really to sort of hit the highlights and the key things that please do not miss. So I'm just going to literally scroll through the document here as we go through it. Obviously you're migrating in your data. Obviously, the most important things, your products, your sections, your categories. Obviously, sometimes you will categorize, and that's fine. Ideally, you do less of that if you can, but there are times that just make sense to make a better experience for your customers. Other things, customers, orders, account logins, all good things to bring in, not as critical. And then, of course, product reviews, very important if you have them in your store to bring them over. But let's go on to what I would consider probably the most critical part of making a platform migration, and that has to do with search. It has to do with, can Google and others, but mostly Google, figure out your store so that your rankings don't dip, or if they do dip, they come back very quickly from a migration. So usually what you want to do is find a way to get a master list of all your pages. That can be done through Google Webmaster Tools, possibly through your current platform, or you can use some outside tools to find pages. But get those, and then make sure to get redirects in. Ideally, when migrating platforms, if you can, have the URLs not change. But if you are forced to, as with some platforms, then get redirects in for any page that changes URL or pages that simply don't transfer in. Bring in a redirect to send them to ideally the most appropriate place. If that product is gone, send them to that category or something along that line, or to an alternative product. Those are on the search visibility, the most critical things. Robots.txt, obviously make sure that's appropriate so that the browsers and the search engines can get to the pages and the images and all the files they need. But with most current platforms, that's not generally a big concern. Scrolling down to customer communication, make sure to handle the order confirmations, your newsletter, your shipping confirmation. All of these are important, but probably the order and the shipping confirmations and any order follow-up emails are most critical. And then obviously, if you have email notifications to your staff, have those set up and make sure those are all working. All the rest should be done, but those are probably the most critical. Going down to other miscellaneous integrations, obviously make sure you've got your shipping set up. Make sure you have your sales tax set up. Make sure you've got your payment methods set up. And make sure to go through, before you go live, placing some orders. Make sure the process makes sense. Make sure everything processes correctly. I would even say, make sure to process it with a real credit card for a real process, to step it through the entire thing to make sure everything functions as expected. You may say, oh, I don't want to, I just want to do a sample. That's great, but it doesn't guarantee that everything is working. So make sure you've got search, make sure you've got your real-time order links. All these things are important, but most important are those first 3 to 4 so you can get paid and so everything can get handled properly. The next thing is with your search engine tools. These include your Google Analytics, your tag managers, your search console. It can even include your Google product feed, okay, and making sure that you handle these properly so that they can get handled. So make sure you've got the settings in there. Make sure that you have claimed your URL for Search Console, and make sure that you have got everything set up to work. It should go pretty clean, especially if you haven't had to change URLs, but usually the main thing is making sure those tags are in so that you've still got your property claimed for your Merchant Center and for your Search Console, and once again also for your Google AdWords. And then for your site structure, these are obviously things that during the build and the transfer, make sure you've got your About Us, your contact pages, things like this. Now if you've gone through and checked off all your pages, you will have these, but it's just good to make sure that these are all there. And the last thing on this list really has to do with navigation, making sure that you either bring over the navigation as it was, or if you're going to change it up, which means changing pages, make sure you make it a much easier and better user experience. And then obviously pre-launch, have people go and try out the site, place your test orders as I mentioned, and make sure all your emails are working. But this comes down to having someone go through the entire process of checking out and making sure it works. Go live, bring in your data before you do that, bring in all your last records, check everything out, your redirects, make sure your DNS is working, and you're good to go.